If you want to get something you've never had, you need to do something you've never done. And it can be as simple as letting go of an old habit or an old pattern or an old subconscious behavior that is no longer serving you. This is a strategy that both my partner and I have implemented without even actually thinking about it, but we were talking about it the other day, and it just dawned on us how much we have transformed for the better since meeting 5 years ago. So when I met my partner, I came into our relationship with my own baggage, as had he. I come from a broken family. My parents had a super toxic relationship, and unfortunately, that's the partnership that I saw modeled to me from a young age. And naturally, as you grow up, you tend to repeat the patterns and the behaviors that you saw modeled to you as a child. And unfortunately, in my situation, I saw a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, a lot of name calling, a lot of just putting each other down, belittling one another, and not seeing eye to eye or even wanting to see eye to eye. So obviously, if I come into a relationship with that sort of modeled behavior in my head, well, what's the first thing I'm gonna do when issues arise and when arguments arise? I am going to just naturally start repeating those same tendencies, although I know that they aren't healthy. Rationally and logically, I can say, this isn't the right response. This isn't the way to navigate a difficult time or an argument. This isn't the way to have a healthy discussion. But when you are in the heat of the moment, it's really tough to realize the type of behavior you are about to engage in. And it actually is like a subconscious pattern of behavior. Ironically enough, my partner comes from a completely different upbringing. His home life was very peaceful. His parents were very loving towards each other, very calm. And yes, of course they had fights, but their little issue was they never apologized. Like, they would move past things, and he always brought up the example, like his parents would get in a fight and then they would basically make up by his mom saying, "What do you want to eat?" And then the dad would tell her what he wanted for dinner, and then she would just kind of cook and they'd move on and get over it. But they never really sat one another down and truly apologized for something they said that was hurtful, or just even acknowledge that they had had an argument. So imagine, I come from this toxic family who's always screaming and yelling and cursing, and then he's coming from this super quiet, like, moves on with ease, but then doesn't apologize, and you can see how those two things don't mesh. And that is exactly what happened during our first few arguments. I would automatically resort to, "Oh my God, like, are you kidding me?" And start getting really heated up and just start wanting to argue and speak louder and get my point across. And then he would kind of get into his shell. I call it his crab mood because he's a Cancer. So as you guys know, their zodiac animal is a crab. So I'll always joke with him like, "Oh no, you're going in your crab shell." And that is exactly what he would do, is he would just simply step back and go quiet, go passive, kind of like go in the other room and just take a breather and be quiet. Whereas I was just like, "How can you walk away? Oh my God, we're in the middle of this." And he's like, "Get me away from this," right? So as you guys can see, it was a recipe for disaster. The whole point of me sharing this with you, because obviously it's a It's a lot to share. It's very personal information, but there is a teaching lesson in this. And it is how over the years we have truly transformed the way that we manage disagreements, that we manage arguments. And let's be real, every couple fights. Although some fight more than others and some fight less than others, at the end of the day, any couple in the world will at some point reach a disagreement. And that's why it is so important to know how to engage in a healthy way, in a way that you're not going to regret down the line. Over time, we began reaching a middle ground. So we had conversations, obviously not when we were in the heat of the moment, but when we were in like a really good place. And I really asked him, hey, when we are in a disagreement, what do you need in that moment? And he asked me the same thing, like, what do you need in that moment? Do you want me to leave you alone? Do you want me to come close to you and like hold you and embrace you? Like, what do you want? So we really ended up sharing with each other our needs and our desires. And that is so important, you guys. Like, in a long-lasting, loving relationship, you have to be vulnerable and you have to express what you truly need in that moment. Like, don't sugarcoat it. If you really do need to walk away and just not talk to the person for a few hours, then tell them. Don't pretend that you're someone who can just get over something and move on. On the other hand, if you're someone who really needs to be held and like hugged if you're upset or sad, then let your partner know, because they aren't psychic, they can't read your mind, and if you don't tell them, they'll never know. So nowadays, we literally stop ourselves in our tracks before we repeat these old patterns, these old behaviors, the ones that we saw modeled to us as children. So let me give you guys an example. Let's say my partner said something that was insensitive. And in the past, my go-to was to be hostile, be mean, say something back at him, get loud. That was my go-to. So nowadays, if that were to happen, the first thing that I do is stop in my tracks. I can literally feel myself starting almost to repeat that old pattern, to repeat that old behavior, which, guess what, is not serving me. It didn't serve my parents. It's not going to serve anyone. And I decide, instead of lashing out, to be vulnerable, to choose vulnerability, to choose a healthy way of communicating. And I'm literally like, hey, I didn't like what you said. Like, that hurt my feelings. So instead of just lashing out and having this ego trip, I'm able to notice that I'm hurt, notice that I need him to acknowledge that hurt. And what does he do? Well, naturally, what did he see growing up? Just kind of get quiet, pretend this never happened, move on. But what does he do now? He apologizes. He gives me a hug. He embraces me. So that is just one example of how we have literally been able to shift our entire dynamic from what we saw modeled as children, what we started to bring into this relationship in the early phases, and now going into a more conscious way of coupling, right? A conscious way of talking about disagreements, of not seeing eye to eye, of getting mad. Like, now I don't allow myself to get mad in the way that I used to get mad. I take pride in knowing that my partner has a safe place here with me. My partner will never have to hear me lash out, will never have to hear me say a curse word to him, will never have to hear me raise my voice. I respect him so much, and like, that is truly the foundation of our relationship, is respect both ways. And I've learned to understand where he's coming from, where, you know, he never really saw anyone apologize growing up. So it took him some time to build that habit, to build that, you know, process. And same with me. I never saw anyone talking about their feelings in a healthy way, or choosing to not fight back or argue or say something louder to get my point across. And now I am choosing to bring that into our life, to create a relationship that we love, that we cherish, that is empowering, the one that feels safe. You can tell your partner things that they won't judge you, they won't criticize you. And that's truly what I want you guys to get out of this video, is you need to start observing your subconscious patterns and behaviors. And instead of always blaming the other person, which is generally our go-to, well, they brought that side out of me. Like, you have, I'm sure, heard your uncle or your friend or your neighbor say something along the lines of, well, they triggered me, it was their fault, they got my nasty side out of me. And it's just not true. We are all capable of bringing out a better version of ourselves, a healthy version of ourselves. Just because our parents experienced a different reality, we don't need to bring that into the present day. We can choose better. I really hope that this video empowers you guys, and that my fiance and I can be an example to you guys in terms of how you can improve your relationship, how you can upgrade your relationship, how you can treat each other with utmost respect, how you can literally say goodbye to the past, goodbye to those old patterns, goodbye to those old behaviors. Our subconscious is our comfort zone, and naturally our subconscious wants to repeat those same patterns, right? Like, that's easy, that's going the same route it's gone every day. But when we choose a different route, when we choose a different response, we will literally create a new reality. There was a time in my life when I truly thought everyone yelled and screamed and cussed. I thought that was just the norm. I thought that was natural. And being with my partner has taught me that you can create your dream relationship. You can create the best dynamic. You don't need to repeat the same patterns that were modeled to you as a kid. You don't need to repeat the old behaviors that never got you the results you wanted. You are in control and you're able to change, right? It's not easy. I'm not saying it is. You need to literally go up a mountain and fight those urges, but once you do it enough, it becomes second nature. And I've said this in another video that when I was young, it was really difficult for me to apologize, like literally for anything. Even if inherently deep down I knew I was in the wrong, I would never want to admit it. I would never want to say, hey, I'm sorry, that was wrong, I truly apologize. In our early phases of our relationship, we would be in this like hiccup for hours or maybe even a full day where like I would be in this mood, he would be in his crab shell, and we've gotten to the point where, man, our arguments don't even last an hour. Like, they are literally seconds, maybe minutes, and it's because we're both so conscious of who we are, of who we want to become, and the respect that we have for each other is top tier. I'm telling you guys, when you choose to respond differently, when you choose to react differently, it doesn't even need to be with a partner. Maybe you're single. It could be how you generally respond to your boss, or how you generally respond to your friend, or how you generally respond when you're triggered or when someone pisses you off. Are you someone who has to like send a paragraph just splurting everything out? Are you someone who gets so mad and like needs to seek revenge? Are you someone who has to delete and block? We all have kind of our weaknesses in that sense of our default, like our default mechanism of when we're triggered. And it is up to us to analyze that pattern and decide, is this helping us create our dream life, our dream partnership, our best version of ourselves? Or is it out of line with that? Is it completely not aligned with who we want to be and who we are becoming? And so that is what we've both decided, is we decide to be loving partners, even in a disagreement. If we disagree, I'm not raising my voice. I'm not using curse words. I'm not getting crazy. I'm saying exactly what hurt me, what upset me in a calm, rational way, and he's apologizing for that behavior. On the other hand, if I say something that doesn't line up with what my partner thinks, he's not resorting to his old tactics of walking away, going in the other room, getting quiet, just wanting his own space and not responding to me. He is also being vulnerable and letting me know how I can improve as a partner. And so when we both decide, like, this is the type of partners that we want to be, this is the type of love that we want to have, we never want to get in an argument that we can't come back from. We never want to say something and it be just so hurtful that years down the line, like, it'll still be a wound. I just want to say that you are capable of creating a new reality. And you do that by observing your old patterns, your old behaviors, or even more simply, analyzing what your parents were like, because 9 times out of 10, we tend to repeat those same behaviors that we saw modeled to us. And that is exactly my life story. Like, the last guy that I was in a serious relationship with, it was almost identical to my mom and dad's dynamic. And it was just me reliving out that same cycle. And had I not learned, had I not stopped in my tracks and said, wait, no, I don't want to go down this path. I'm the author of my reality. I get to create my life. I get to decide the type of person I want to be, the type of words I use in an argument, the tone of voice that I use when responding to my partner. I get to decide. And you become just unstoppable. Like, there is truly nothing that could get in between my partner and I now, because we are so conscious when we're talking about things and discussing and debating. Even if we disagree, we respect each other so much that we consider why their viewpoint is different than ours. We're not so quick to react. We're more likely to listen, to understand, to be empathetic. And it is just a completely different way of loving someone. It's a completely different way of relating to someone, of growing with someone. And I just want you guys to know that it is a possibility for you too. Perhaps your current relationship or your last relationship is mirroring the toxicness that your parents had. And perhaps you think you're just stuck. Like, you know what? My parents were like this, so it's only natural I'm gonna be like this. No, this is me telling you that you get to decide who you become. You get to decide which patterns you're going to have, and you better be consciously aware and creating them, because if not, it's going to be your subconscious choosing, and your subconscious is always going to be choosing the easy option, the comfortable route, the behavior that it's always engaged in, right? Because that's feeding your ego. So instead of choosing your ego and choosing the same old, choose differently. And I am telling you, your entire life will change, your relationship will be upgraded, everything will improve, because now you are loving from a place of respect and from a place of genuine, like, wanting the best for one another. So instead of attacking each other or resorting to your passive natures or whatever you usually do, you are going to be deciding which pattern you want to cultivate and bring into your life, and it will honestly upgrade your relationship times a million. So that is all that I have for you guys today. If you would like to work with me one-on-one in a coaching setting, then check out my description. I have the details there. And I will see you all very, very soon. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Bye!